Jill.
And I'm Myra, and we're here with Besties in Business at the Rent Patina showroom in Brooklyn, New York. And today we're here with Sadie Kurzban. If you've heard of the Tracy Anderson method, if you've heard of Soul Cycle, but you haven't heard of 305 Fitness, you are about to very soon, because Sadie is the new hotness in New York. National fitness. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you create an empire for fitness.
Yeah, I'm so excited, and I think we should also say that we're also very biased to Sadie, not just because it's a great workout at 305, but because she's a Brown alum. So do you want to tell us a little bit about how you started 305 and kind of what the kind of purpose and specialness of it is?
Sure, absolutely. So I started by teaching classes in college, just very fun part-time at our school's gym. Had a blast doing it. I was out one night at a nightclub with my best friend, and we saw the lights and the DJ, and she knew how much I loved teaching these classes, so she thought, why don't you turn this into a business? So I started taking business classes at Brown. I entered our university's startup competition, which is a really male-dominated, intense entrepreneurial competition, and I won. And I took that money and I bootstrapped the business here in New York. So I started just by teaching a few classes at a time.
That's amazing.
And it grew and grew.
Were you just at the gym, or were you also taking it on the road in Providence before you moved to New York?
So in Providence, I did do a couple test runs before I moved to New York. So we did it at a bar downtown, at a nightclub downtown. We rented space around campus as well. And here in New York, that was the concept. So for the first 2 years, it was a pop-up model where I was renting from primarily dance studios and gyms, but also occasionally from loft spaces and outdoor spaces and more interesting spaces for the customers.
Did you find it was word of mouth? Did you find it was press? Like,
because you also got great press when you came to New York. So yeah, what have you found to be more helpful?
It was a total combination of both. You're right. Yeah. That rush to sign up, that excitement about it definitely helps drive the excitement. So it sort of feeds on itself. But to get people in the door, what I really focus on are referrals. Okay. So I build those into my incentives. I tell people if they bring friends, they get free classes. And that's been really successful and really helpful. People really trust their friends before they trust the news, before they trust paid advertising. Definitely they trust their friends, so getting them on board was important. And then press has been huge, so about 30% of my clients find out about us through press.
Wow.
And I decided to hire a publicist who's fantastic a few months ago, but before then I was doing all of the pitching.
What is the biggest differences that you've noticed since doing your own PR and now having brought someone on?
The biggest difference between having a publicist pitch and me pitching myself is, of course, the time and energy that it takes. So I can thankfully now focus on everything that's important to me in the business, and that's thinking about the brand, training instructors, really focusing on the product, and then she can go out and show that off for me. So we have a really good synergy together.
So how many classes does 305 have a week? How many do you teach, and how many instructors do you have?
Good question. So I have 51 a week in New York City. There's 10 instructors in New York. We also have a live DJ in every class, so there's 6 DJs in New York. And then in DC, we have 15 classes a week, and 4 instructors and 3 DJs.
Wow. Now, DC has a studio, or is it also a pop?
DC is a pop-up model.
It's a pop-up. But in New York, you opened your studio in October.
Right.
And what was that experience like? Like commercial real estate, major build out?
Yeah, it was really intense.
So whole new thing, right?
Whole new thing. It went from being a business where I just needed $30,000 to start it, a website, word of mouth, to a business that I needed almost $1 million to start it. So I rented a huge, huge space in New York. It's very expensive real estate, and on top of that, developing the whole space, outfitting it. It's a whole complete gut renovation.
Working with
of the
architects.
Architects, engineers. Yeah. We have an elevator in the space. It's a whole business that I wasn't familiar with.
Well, I think it's really interesting, and we talk about this all the time when we're talking with female business owners. You have this thing that you feel really passionate about, and whether it's fitness or weddings or cake baking, and then you start a business and it's all these other things that have nothing to do with this has nothing to do with working out, right? And it's and now all of a sudden you're doing a gut reno,
absolutely. So the reason I started this business and the reason I'm passionate about it is because I wanted to change the conversation about fitness. I thought all we see out there is really about getting that bikini body and that beach body, and it's so it's really anti-women in a lot of way, and
it
really is. It's really intimidating. It's very frustrating. people think that that's what working out is about. And for me, working out was about moving my body and feeling good about myself and feeling empowered and connected and having an outlet to blow off steam at the end of a long day and having a community of women where I could dance with and celebrate my life with. So that's why I started the business. That's what gets me out of bed every morning. But it has entailed talking with insurance brokers and figuring out convertible notes and doing gut renovations of spaces and all these other things that operationally don't drive me, but this passion behind it really does, and it gets me through it.
It almost sets you up to fail when you think about working out that other way, because you're like, but I'm not getting that body, like, right? And then it's like you go into it feeling so frustrated. And what I think is so awesome is like you really do embrace that message. Like you did that Valentine's Day party, and I was like, that's awesome. Like it was like a workout party, like, and I was like love yourself kind of thing. And I was like, that I get why you've got this kind of loyal, because now that you open the studio, you also increase the price of the class, right? Like, and I was like, but I get why you're able to command it, because you're connecting with people, not just in like a, in that way that you're just sitting and you're just sitting there following an instructor. Like it's like a little bit more. I think that that's the difference between just going to a workout class and it being like a thing, right? Like a spirit or an essence of your brand. How do you find, as you're getting new instructors, that you convey that to them, right?
I invite them to make it a collaboration. So I'm always asking them for their input. I think they feel like they're really part of this company and building it with me. And I train them really extensively myself. So I hand select them. I think for any business owner out there, the single smartest thing that I've done is have the right talent and really be very focused on getting them. So recruiting them, training them. I personally train them for hundreds of hours before they start teaching. And part of their training session isn't just show me a high kick. It's we also have a lot of conversations. We read books. We think about feminism. We think about the kind of messages that we want to say in class. And I also encourage them to cultivate their own sort of personas. So they're not just robots of me or drones. They're their own people standing in front of the room.
That's really interesting in terms of like having reading lists of messages you want to convey during classes, because you're trying to motivate, right? So you just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page in terms of like what motivating like sort of catchphrases, tags that everybody's using.
One thing about fundraising, because like that's like now you go into this thing and now you're looking at, you go from like pretty simple overhead to now committing to like did you do friends and family? Like, did you like have to really flesh out a business plan? Had you kind of already been doing that? Well, you had the business plan competition, but like, what shifted in terms of that, right?
So, I raised most of the money through friends and family. It was, you know, on the one hand, it's a little easier to do. The ask is easier. You have less things to prove about your business, and it's people who really believe in you. On the other hand, it makes the risk for me feel much more personal, and I feel that if I don't succeed in this, my friends and family are going to be really disappointed. So most of it was through them. I did them through convertible notes, so it was a good way to offset having to place a valuation on the company when I really feel like it's growing so much right now. But on the same hand, give them that kind of upside later that's potential, and give them some peace of mind that I feel confident I can pay them back. I also raised some money from some clients who really believed in me, so similar sort of thing, had seen me work really hard on this for 2 years, believed in the mission, had some disposable income, aren't necessarily savvy investors, but think that this could be a good investment for them. And now I'm looking at a second studio, so I'm also raising money, and that's going to be a little bit more institutional money, so I'm starting to go to more formal angel investors and some venture capital to look for that.
What do you think is the biggest challenge for owning the business by yourself?
I'm so envious in a lot of ways that you two started this together, and you have this sort of sisterhood of belief, and you can go through emotionally things together. So I started this business with my best friend in college. It didn't work out. I was devastated at the time, and I didn't know if I was going to have the courage to come here and start it. I did it anyway, for better or for worse, but it was really lonely for a while. I then had another woman who worked for me who was slowly becoming a business partner of sorts. We were getting very close, but ultimately it didn't work out. And part of that was that I felt that she couldn't commit to 5 years or 10 years of this business. When I think about that commitment, it doesn't scare me at all. But so in a lot of ways, I don't know what it's like to be a single mom, but I imagine that running a business by yourself is like being a single mom, because I created it and I had it. No one at this point that I can bring on, they can love it, but they will never really love it the way that I do.
Was there like a little bit of shock from your family side that you weren't going to do something like a little bit more traditionally, So one funny story that I have about this is that when I first
considered starting the business, I looked to our alumni network, which when you're a senior, they're really, you know, aggressive about pushing this, and it's true. That's how I met you, Brown alumni. That we really are very supportive. So I looked on this network and I typed in fitness, and there was nothing. There was one guy who has been helpful. He started a gym like 25 years ago, but that was it. You know, like it was really hard to find. You know, maybe I found someone who like worked in corporate at Equinox, like which is really, really large, but really no one who had started something like this. Certainly, I couldn't find any personal trainers or dancers or stuff like that was at least available to me.
Right.
So there's definitely a bias. We go to one of the best schools in the country. A lot of people become consultants, doctors, lawyers, engineers. There's no doubt about it. My family was really supportive. I think that's because they saw that I lit up when I was teaching these classes and when I would talk about it, and there was no denying it. My friends were equally supportive, but I think, so it wasn't other people judging me, but I think when I first moved to New York, for me, I felt really lonely in that way. I would go to, you know, recent alum parties and stuff with my friends who we had just all graduated, and all of them had 4-year plans, and they were going to business school or they were investment bankers, and it was still unclear about what I was doing.
I've noticed, like, when I first came back to New York after college, like, because I'm from here, that like Crunch was like the thing. Like, it was like you basically joined Crunch because that was like the hip gym to be at, and they had classes, and then it was like, then it became Equinox, and now like I notice classes is like the thing. So I'm just curious, like, where you see yourself in the competitive landscape, but also how the trends are changing.
Totally. So boutique fitness is what we call these sort of like class-based phenomenon. It's very popular right now. I'm not sure if it's here to stay. I think that ultimately the most successful brands are the ones that are constantly reinventing themselves and are standing out in that way. So I have, you know, dreams of offering different kinds of classes and entering into different markets, not just geographically, but sort of emotionally and product-wise. I think that in this industry, these things totally tend to be faddish. Some people can ride it out for a year, and some people can ride it out for 10 or 20 years, which is what Equinox has done amazingly well. So I'm hoping that if we can keep reinventing ourselves and being creative about it, that we can really ride this for a long time.
The good thing is that you have a sense of what the brand is beyond it just being a dance class. Right, like, so that's the thing that it gives you the flexibility to change, right? Like, what advice would you give to yourself? I guess, how old is the business now?
3 years.
Gosh, that's amazing. Okay, so what advice would you give to your 3-year-old younger, your younger self? 3
years younger
minus
self.
3.
I think I would just say, just do it. I know I did do it, and I'm really happy that I did it, but there was so much time I wasted wondering, in self-doubt, considering other options, thinking maybe this wasn't right for me, and I'm so happy I did it. So I would suggest to any entrepreneur, if you have this burning desire, just go for it, because no one is going to fault you later if you gave it your best.
Yeah. What do you see as like the 5-year? In 5 years, you'd love to see yourself blank.
Let's like, what has been the most helpful? Like, if there's one thing that you have found through this journey that has been like the most helpful, somebody starting out, that you could tell them. Like, you know.
Man, I think the most important thing is truly to do something that you are excited about. So I meet a lot of people who are considering starting businesses, and it's just kind of like a random idea they came up with. They just think it's glamorous to be an entrepreneur. It's not glamorous. It's the worst curse in the world. I don't have a social life. I barely sleep. It's a lot of work. So unless you have this dying passion to do something that's going to get you through doing all the crappy things you have to do sometimes, don't do it. It's not worth it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you can follow Sadie's Instagram account that now we know is being manned by people working for class at 305 Fitness. It's at 305 Fitness. And we're at Besties in Biz, and you can check out all the videos at bestiesinbusiness.com. Thank you.